Bibliotherapy is the creative use of reading and writing for well-being. Books, stories, and poems invite readers to explore their inner and outer worlds, from the depths of struggle, grief, and despair to the peaks of joy, accomplishment, and hope. The reader, the writer, can and does travel. Stories evoke stories. Or, as my then 4-year-old grandson said to me one day, "Grandpa, stories work." He and I had just been practicing one of those oldest forms of bibliotherapy. It is the turn-taking back and forth stories 2 or more people share. Once upon a time, the first person starts, there was a man walking on a windy day when, and you pass the story to the second person, and the next person says something like, he was hit by flying tree leaves and pieces of paper, even some sand. Back to the first person, the man quickly moved behind a tree so as not to be hit. Fourth, and now my son again, only to find that behind that tree was a lion, a hamster, and a donkey, who also had been walking that day. That's bibliotherapy, storytelling. We wonder where the story goes. As one reads a novel or a poem, they move from the text on the page to the story inside that resembles what they had just read. On this trip to Scotland, I was reading The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry. In the midst of the volume, there is this account after a neighbor of Harold Fry's wife had died. I miss her all the time. I know in my head that she is gone, but I still keep looking. The only difference is that I'm getting used to the pain. It's like discovering a great hole in the ground. To begin with, you forget that it's there and you keep falling in. After a while, it's still there, but you learn to walk around it. As soon as I read that particular part of the book, I thought about my own mom. I thought of other people who died in my life and some of the holes that I had fallen into. So humans are storytelling creatures. Leslie Soko, a Native American from my country, a Laguna woman by tribe, wrote, "You don't have anything if you don't have the stories. Our stories keep us from sickness and death." She writes, as a marginalized person in my country who knows more than some others the power of stories and how, for some, their stories are seen as less important, less acceptable. Let me distinguish 2 kinds of bibliotherapy, formal and informal. Each have great merit. Informal bibliotherapy is what we do routinely in our daily lives. We tell stories, we send emails, we write letters about our lives and the things that we live with. It happens at the dinner table, a social event, with friends, even with strangers. One of the strengths of bibliotherapy, as contrasted with art, drama, or music therapy, is that storytelling and reading are universal. Everybody does it. Not everybody does art or music therapy. Even these informal ways can include writing. There's a new volume of accounts from adults entitled Everything I Learned from Children's Books. At our best in families, we read to our children and through books invite, encourage, and coach children about values, relationships, and characters and character. Remember Goodnight Moon or Dr. Seuss? The formal sort of bibliotherapy begins when a librarian, a counselor, a nurse, or a mentor uses poetry, fiction, essays, writing, or stories as a resource when working with others. A brief excerpt or passage can prompt others to write or tell their stories. Listen to this poem. Two girls discover the secret of life in a sudden line of poetry. I, who don't know the secret, wrote the line. They told me through a third person that they had found it, but not what it was, not even what line it was. No doubt by now, more than a week later, they've forgotten the secret, the line, even the name of the poem. I love them for finding what I can't find, and for loving me, for the line I wrote, and for getting it, so that 1,000 times till death finds them, they may discover it again in other lines and other happenings, and for wanting to know it, for assuming there is such a secret of life, yes, for that most of all. It's a poem by Denise Levertov. She wrote the poem, but some people read her poem, found another poet, found a secret that for them was the secret of life through that poem. She heard about it. She doesn't know the secret of life. Poems evoke other poems and stories and so on. So bibliotherapy, as I said earlier, is the creative use of reading and writing for well-being. That's what we're talking about and so on. One other piece, if I may, from a recent book of poetry called Writing Place. A woman is describing her experience of being in a writing group. Listen to these words. It's called Here I Am. Here I am, whirling dervish, mind buzzing, looking for calm. Here I am, in a cozy room with new faces, new connections, new beginnings. Here I am, stepping out into a new guise. Here today, now, today, not yesterday's loser or tomorrow's failure. Here I am, a writer, writing wee words on a new page, words of hope, clarity, and charity to myself. It's a piece by Connie McDonald, this lovely anthology called Writing Place, and so on. So I invite you to visit and revisit the Words Work Well website. Facilitators of bibliotherapy will find it a valuable resource for continuing use.